Don't hear a whole lot from the Yang Gang these days. Seems like this guy's mostly propped up by billionaires and fellow capitalists, bourgeois, etc. But anyway, I put out this tweet the other day. Andrew Yang and the Forward Party are not interested in liberating you from your corporate oppressors. They are a party of, by, and for capitalists and are gentrifying the third party movement accordingly. That sounds a little bit harsh, I know, but let's take a look about some recent developments with the Forward Party. Here's a tweet, which Andrew Yang proudly retweeted, by the way. The Forward Party successfully merged with Renew America and Save America movement, clinching much needed conservative support. The party, which now outsizes both libertarians and Greens in funding and staff, will hold its first national convention in 2023. So
wonder where.
Yeah, I wonder where they got all that money. Who knows? It's almost like they're just tools of the capitalist class. Anyway, let's take a look here. So, that was just a screenshot. Let's actually look at some real reporting on the matter and actually, find out about what kind of groups the Forward Party is building coalitions with. Here we go. One sec, guys. I'm pulling this one up. All right, here we go. Andrew Yang's Forward Party merges with groups led by former GOP officials. Sounds kind of like the Lincoln Party or something like that. All these never Trump neocons banding together under the guise of saving democracy. But let's actually read this article from The Hill if I can pull it up. Here we go. God, I hate the layout of The Hill's website, by the way. What a clusterfuck. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Yang's Forward Party merges with groups led by former GOP officials. Former Democratic New York City mayoral candidate and presidential candidate Andrew Yang has joined forces with former Republicans, Democrats, and independents on the Forward Party, Yang announced Wednesday. The political party, initially formed in October, is now a merger of three organizations: Yang's Forward Party, the Renew America movement, consisting of former Republicans led by former Trump White House official Miles Taylor, and the Serve America movement, made up of Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and founded by former Representative David Jolly. Building a positive, unifying third-party movement is going to be difficult, but is exactly what millions of Americans have been waiting for, Yang said in a statement to The Hill. That's why we will succeed. Forward Party leaders are billing it as the biggest third party in the country, saying it will reject political extremes and pursue common ground. And again, that kind of points to the whole issue with this, is that it's not actually an issue-focused or issue-based political movement. It seems like their main mission is to reject political extremes and pursue common ground, which is completely meaningless, just a total cliche, doesn't mean anything. And again, the fact that they're not actually centering any policy substance in this whole endeavor, I think tells you everything you need to know, right? But anyway, it says not left, not right, forward. It reads a slogan. Yang, who left the Democratic Party, echoed similar sentiments in his own announcement, yada, 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 yada. But anyway, I think the big takeaway from this is, the Forward Party has begun merging with other groups, other third parties and political PACs and stuff like that. And, this is a strategy I've long endorsed when it comes to third parties. Early in the, channel's history, Zach and I talked a lot about how, it would be in the best interest of the leftist third parties like the Green Party and the Socialist Alternative and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. It would be ideal if they formed coalitions and could kind of become like one big super leftist third party, because obviously on their own, they already have enough of an issue reaching the percentage points necessary to matter at all. Maybe if they join together, they'd have a better chance. So I don't have any problem in concept with this idea of coalition building and merging of different political parties and third parties, etc. But I do think it's pretty telling that instead of, for example, reaching out to the Green Party or the Socialist Alternative or the Peace and Freedom Party or the Party for Socialism and Liberation or the Communist Party, I could go on and on and on with all of the leftist third parties. No, instead, Yang is reaching out to these like corporate Lincoln Party adjacent kind of movements. Again, the Renew America movement and the Serve America movement, these very generic corporate backed, corporate aligned PACs and parties. They're not even real third parties, is the thing. They're organizations which basically just exist to get donation money from people. I think it's very telling that this is who he's kind of making his bed with. This is who he's joining forces with. It's all of these corporatists who aren't anti-capitalist. It's not like he's joining up with socialists or anything like that. No, these are fellow corporatists, fellow capitalists, and that's the problem with the Forward Party, is that the whole point, at least in my opinion, of the third party movement movement is to resist the corruption of the duopoly, because there's an understanding that there's been a corporate capture of our political system, and that encompasses both the Republican and Democrat parties. They're both captured by corporate money. They're both corrupted by capitalist forces. Therefore, the point, in my opinion, of a third party is to present a real alternative to that. If you already have two capitalist and two imperialist parties, then the point of a third one would be to be anti-capitalist, actually to address the underlying systemic issues with this country, largely which is caused by corruption and capitalism. Apparently, the Forward Party has no interest in taking on those problems, and it just wants to reduce extremism and find more common ground, which again means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's actually its entire purpose is to keep activists and energy away from authentic third-party movements, right? It's not an accident that these fuckers are throwing a bunch of money at third parties that are completely the same. They're just microcosms of the corporate duopoly, right? And if you look at the Sam Party website that we were looking at on Colin the other day, it'll just show you that, you know, the problem they've identified is dark money. Like, they only want corporations to be able to buy elections in the daylight, right? They'll lean into the Citizens United framework, like we talked about yesterday, where they'll say, like, everybody has the right to speak on an election, but you don't have a right to anonymity and all these kinds of things, right? And of course, they went with the never Trumpers and the Liz Cheneys and all of these people, because those are the people that will never authentically question or challenge power, right? Those are the people who the corporate interests, they know where their loyalty is, right? And so essentially what they're going to do is they're going to take a bunch of Republicans who don't want to be seen as like outward racists and creeps, and then like a bunch of Democrats who don't want to use people's pronouns correctly, and they're all going to form this like super distraction group, which is all like, oh, we're just not going to talk about anything that we disagree with, and then we're going to endorse a bunch of people who are the same motherfuckers that keep existing in American politics. Or we'll have a third candidate that is exactly the same, but just kind of speaks or presents themselves in this like very neutral, very like inoffensive way. And of course, that's where Andrew Yang decided to go, because he was never actually interested in being a populist leader. He was very much interested in gaining some clout, becoming the head of the conversation, right? And as a Silicon Valley guy, he knows exactly how to triangulate on a lane, right? That's what he's done his entire life. Like, his whole Venture for America organization that he used to like propel him up into the limelight at all was a complete failure, right? The entire hypothesis was completely fucked. It was like, hey, if we start having startups built in these smaller, more developing communities like New Orleans, Kansas City, St. Louis, etc., Detroit, then that's going to create a boom for all these towns. And guess what? That doesn't work, because capitalism doesn't work. And if they're successful, they just get vacuumed up by the coast like literally everything else. And but he has this Silicon Valley brain rot where he thinks what's the problem with our society is that people are bickering on the internet, right? And so it's like, oh, well, if we just don't talk about any of those issues where we're bickering, and we just talk about how we want things to be good, and we want roads, and we want platitudes, and X, Y, and Z, then you're going to take enough people away from this like third party mission who don't actually have time to, get into the nitty gritty of all of this. And they just think, oh, the Republicans and the Democrats are both fucked. I'll just try this other one for once. And I think that's where they're trying to carve out their lane. It obviously will be deeply unsuccessful, but I imagine that's their intent.
Yeah, we'll see, right? And thank you, Tool Druid, by the way, for the 499. Make no mistake, the Forward Party is a pro-corporate, pro-status quo centrist organization masquerading as real change. 100% Tool Druid. And it's funny because Andrew Yang seems to present this idea of a third party as like, oh, the problem with our system is that we only have two parties. And if we had more parties, then we would have a better, more flourishing democracy. And of course, I agree with that in principle, in theory. I also support third parties. I think that a multi-party system would definitely increase the democratic value of our government and our ability to have our voices heard, etc. But his idea seemingly is just to add another corporate capitalist party to the mix. It's like we'll have the Democrats, Republicans, and the Forward Party, but they're all essentially the same. They all take corporate money. They all stand for capitalism. They all stand for imperialism. None of them are seriously attacking the power centers or the elite oligarchy. It's all just kind of this bullshit. And to prove that, here's the platform of one of the parties that, the Forward Party has just merged with. This is the SAM Party. I think the Serve America Movement. They always have these super generic names. Look at this platform. This is a parody of a platform, guys. How we solve problems. listen, listen to and engage all key stakeholders. What the fuck? Constituents. They're literally speaking about this as if it's like a corporate startup, which may require outreach to ensure that a diversity of groups and perspectives are heard. So their number one plank on their platform is listen. Their number two is define. We define the problem based on all the information we gather. Okay, so what, you haven't even figured out what the problem is yet? You're just like, we got to listen and find out. The whole point of this party is just to figure out what the problem is. They haven't even identified it. They don't even have any solutions. Again, listen and define.
Well, I think that they're, just to be fair, I think that they've defined a bunch of them, like debt, equality, environment, immigration, economy.
Yeah, well, they're still not really presenting much of a solution other than invite, collaborate, measure, repeat, and refine. This is literally their platform. So yeah, you can throw out, 5 or 6 words that mean scary things. But if your platform is listen, define, invite, collaborate, measure, repeat, and I keep thinking that says repeat, rinse and repeat, repeat and refine. And this is all just cliche, vague garbage. Sometimes policies have unintended consequences, both good and bad. Yeah, no fucking shit. How about some solutions? How about we talk about the banning of corporate money, buying off politicians, literal corruption in our government, which is grinding the legislature to a halt, resulting in a government that doesn't actually meet the needs of the people. This is all bullshit. This doesn't mean anything. Invite, gather ideas for solutions from many different sources, including constituents. The more constructive inputs, the better. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
It gives me mad throwbacks to the block school, bro. Like, this is peak business school brainstorming, right? Like, it reminds me of when I was in Enactus, dude. It reminds me of like the fake solutions where they take some of the people who go through business school and you're like, wait, aren't we actually like hurting people when we do all of this? And they're like, oh, you belong over here, where it's like, here's how you use capitalism to save the world, and then they show you a bunch of shit like this, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just brainwashing material, right? Like, it's platitudes, it's empty, and yeah, they do sound like third graders are.
Yeah, and go on like the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Look at their platform. You're gonna see like a fucking screed a mile long about the revolutionary struggle against capitalism and how we need to attack it from all these areas, and the environment and the working class struggle and union rights and all these specific policy positions. Then you look at this fucking garbage, and again, it's just nothing. It's absolute bullshit. This doesn't mean anything. This could be a Republican website. This could be a Democrat website. It doesn't matter, because again, these people aren't interested in being specific. They're not interested in actually solving problems, because solving problems means actually attacking the capitalist oligarchy that these people are tools of. They're not interested in seriously resisting powers. They're not interested in being a real resistance to our corporate supremacy in this country and on this globe. No, they don't give a fuck about that. This is all just a branding exercise. And again, it's very telling that this is who the Forward Party has decided to join hands with. These never Trump Lincoln Project types that have nothing to contribute to the conversation other than bullshit gobbledygook. So that's very telling. Again, and it's not even like Andrew Yang talks about universal basic income anymore. Like, you never even hear him really advocate for UBI. It's all just this vague bullshit about, oh, can we put aside our differences and join together on a common ground of America? It's all meaningless. It's all bullshit.
That's why they don't have any real policies on their entire website, because they don't want to put anything on there that could divide anybody. That's how they're totally unserious, right? Politics is about debate, discourse, and action, right? It's about policy. It's about what are we going to do to change things? What are we going to do to make things better, right? And if you're not actually willing to tackle any of those things are going to be things that people disagree on, right? Gavin and I are about as close as you can get on political disagreements. If we're writing policy together, though, we're going to butt heads and we're going to have to argue about shit, and we'll have to come to a consensus, right? So you can't just remove any kind of any hot button issue. That's like the whole point of being a political party, is it's like, hey, we're going to tackle these hot button issues and we have a solution to them. But as Gavin pointed out, like, they have no intention of providing any solutions. They don't even want to discuss the issues. They just want to it really is, it's just the political party equivalent of that Colbert Jon Stewart parade, where it was like, everything's okay, we're all just fine. It's like, let's be status quo Joes and never talk about anything bad, and pull the wool over our eyes, and because everything's okay for us, we make enough money to live, like, let's just pretend nothing else bad is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, It's especially funny because Andrew Yang was teasing this big announcement the other day, and this is what it was, that they're merging with essentially the Lincoln Project Lite. We were all expecting it to be like, at least something more interesting, like, oh, we're gonna run Mark Cuban in 2024, or maybe Andrew Yang himself is going to run again. That would also be pathetic, don't get me wrong, but it definitely would be less pathetic than this bullshit. Again, merging with the Lincoln Project Lite as if it's somehow some sort of revolutionary step forward for the third party movement. Meanwhile, by his own admission, they're taking donations away from serious third party efforts, basically gentrifying the entire struggle for a third party in the process, which is pretty predictable given the nature of capitalism itself. But anyway, I did want to
goes off on a dark tangent, given the pernicious nature of capitalism.
Anyway, I did want to play a couple videos for you guys. We were talking a little bit about Andrew Yang and the fact that the Forward Party doesn't seem to have any issue with taking corporate money, or they've made no promises not to take corporate money, which again is one of the foundational issues with the duopoly. Like, you can't be anti-duopoly but pro big money corruption. That is the problem with the duopoly. Like, at that point, it is just all aesthetic for you. Like, you don't actually care about what's the real issues at the heart of these broken systems. You just care about this kind of branding exercise. Well, I'm not the Democrat or the Republican. I'm in the middle. I'm in the center. Like, aren't I fucking enlightened? No, you're not. You're a fucking chump. Anyway, this is a little bit of a throwback, just a really quick clip back from when Andrew Yang was on TYT. Shout out to Cenk Uygur, not someone we typically give a ton of credit to, but this is actually spot on, and he did a good job kind of nailing Andrew Yang's balls to the wall as far as this corporate money question. Again, you guys might have seen this before, but I thought it was worth revisiting in light of these new developments.
Yeah, and you can see how long we've been busting Yang's balls because we reacted to this in real time back in October as well of 2021. So anyway.
The real problem in this country isn't that, oh, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have gone awry. The real problem is that they've both gone awry because they both get bribed. So if you form a third party, by the way, as you're doing here with Forward Party, and I'm curious to ask you, and so I'll do it right here, are you gonna allow corporate PAC donations? Because if you do, your party will instantly get taken over by bribery as well.
You're pointing out the core problem, which is right now our government is overrun by moneyed interests. The Forward Party right now, we're just passing the hat to grassroots donors and individuals. We don't have any design on taking corporate PAC money. If we ever did, we would be totally transparent about it. But I'm going to suggest that people who are going to give to the Forward Party just want things to get better and change.
Yeah, I just wanted to say right there, that's the teller. Oh, but if we ever did, right? That sounds like Elizabeth Warren to me, right? Oh, I remember Liz Warren. I'm not taking any super PAC money. Oh yeah, you did. Oh yeah, you did. When the going got tough, you did, and that's exactly what Andrew Yang did as well. Shout out to Cenk though for the specific framing of that question. And we were talking earlier in the podcast about how you ask a tough question when you already know you're fucking right. Like Cenk already knows. The corporate duopoly runs this country, right? It's not up for debate. Yang knows it too, and Cenk knows that Yang knows, right? He's swam in the swamp. Everybody knows. They either lie about it or they tell the truth about it, right? And he says, if you do take corporate money, you will instantly forfeit any kind of serious opposition, right? He says it to his face in the framing of the question. That's how you drop a bomb on somebody, and that's how you say, no, you're not fucking weaseling out of this. And look at how angry and just upset and perturbed Yang looks after he gets asked the question in that way, because Cenk didn't give him a single fucking square inch of wiggle room, right? And we'll see the same thing again with Jimmy when Jimmy dealt with Andrew Yang a couple years back as well, right? You can't give these fuckers any wiggle room because they're so slimy that they will flip it around and get out of it.
Like, what the heck do we control? Nothing. Like, what kind of corporate PAC would be like, you know what we're gonna do? Like, the Forward Party is gonna, we're the pro lowercase d democracy popular movement. Certainly, again, I'm practical. We're gonna need resources to get our work done, and hopefully we can get it done, get those resources from human beings.
But I think what Cenk's also asking though is like going forward, if I may, is that when you do get to the point, obviously you're starting out now. When you do get to the point that there are candidates who are running under the emblem of the Forward Party, Are you going to make that a tenet of the party to not take corporate PAC money during an election? Has that been talked about?
One thing we will have as a tenet is total transparency around who's backing a campaign. And I think that's what people should expect.
All right. Yeah, so again, it proves that Andrew Yang's not serious about taking on the powers that be. As I said, our corporate oppressors, our overlords. He's not interested in taking those people on. Seemingly his diagnosis of the problem is that there's too much extremism on the left and there's too much extremism on the right. And it's not the problem of the corporate donors. It's not the problem of the corporate oligarchy or the plutocracy, rather. No, it's the problem with just normal people, I guess, like these crazy Trump voters on one side. And then on the other side, we got all these crazy, like, defund the police people. Oh, it's just the extremists. That's the problem. It's just, average Americans that have extreme opinions about things. They're the problem. It's not the, corrupting influences of corporate capitalism, which is literally buying off our politicians. No, that's not something worth resisting at all. No, all we need to do is find common ground and root out extremism, which again means absolutely nothing. Someone on either side of the aisle will tell you that they agree with that or support that, because again, it doesn't mean anything. It's not specific. It's intentionally vague. And that's the whole problem with this whole entire venture. It's all bullshit.
100%. I'll tell you, I support rooting out extremism. I'll tell you what's extreme to me, having almost 1,000 military bases all over the world. I'll tell you what's extreme. People dying on the fucking streets of the richest country in the world because they don't have healthcare, because they don't have a place to live, because their fucking entire planet's been destroyed by carbon burning massive conglomerates that have absolutely no shame, no conscience, and no no ability to be brought to justice, right? That's extreme to me, but that's not the kind of extremism that they want to deal with, right? The kind of extremism that they want to deal with is, let's get rid of our racist as shit police department. Oh, no, can't do that. Can't talk about that. Let's give people access to things they need. No.
Yep, and it goes back to the one of the platform issues on, I forget which party. It was either the SAM party or the other one. But again, kind of this like implicit actually agreeing with the Citizens United decision, which... Yeah, the SAM party. They're like, we don't have a problem with corporations donating money. We just have a problem with the dark money. So, they're saying as long as we know who's giving the money, it's not a problem. That's the implication. And obviously I'm against dark money too, but I'm also against all corporate donation money to political candidates, because it's obviously corruption. And if all you're against is the dark money, basically what you're saying is that I don't care if someone's corrupting you. I just want to know who is corrupting you. It's like, yeah, how about we just get rid of the corruption overall? Like, what's the problem with that? Why aren't you standing in favor of that? That's the obvious problem to this. That's the obvious problem here, and you're refusing to address it intentionally. That being said, I wanted to go back in time even a little bit further, actually, to 2019, when Andrew Yang was on the Jimmy Dore show. This was a great interview back in the day. Let's take a listen here. Again, we're just going to listen to a tiny bit of it. But this was one of the early, most revealing moments from Andrew Yang's entire career. One of the first big red flags for me and Zach, I think, and I'm sure anyone else that was watching who's actually a real principled person on the left. But let's take a listen to this, because this was mind blowing and continues to be.
And for a minimum wage, what are you for, the 15 or the 20 or the 25? Are you for one of those?
Well, I'm for 100% for the spirit that no American should be working full time and not be able to pay their bills. But the reality is that we move to a $15 minimum wage. There are many small businesses and industries like fast food that would probably end up getting rid of shifts in workers. Because if you have a fast food restaurant that's paying people $9.25 an hour, and then you say it's 15, then they're going to look around and be like, it's like robot burger flipper time, or it's like self-serve kiosk time.
By the way, a lot of times you go to a fast food restaurant, your meal will literally end up costing about $15. You're telling me they can't pay a worker $15 an hour when they charge that much basically for a fucking meal? That's such ridiculousness on its face. But anyway.
Also, just to piggyback off of that, that's just a straight up lie that they'll do that. One, they already have kiosks where it's fucking easy for them to do it. They don't have the ability or the finances to make the food without humans, or they would have done it already. Hello, Andrew Yang. McDonald's isn't a fucking charity, and they don't give a fuck what they do to the working class. They already just, places like Walmart, same thing, right? They're not fucking keeping workers there out of the goodness of their fucking heart, right? No, it's really easy to steal shit from the self-checkout. That's why they have fucking a bunch of people there. That's the reality, though. So if you guys are struggling, get that bag from the self-checkout. But yeah, on top of that, I also just wanted to point out that he says he supports the spirit of a living wage. Go fuck yourself, sir. He also went from, I support Medicare for all, to I support the spirit of Medicare for all. And that phrasing has been burned into my fucking brain because of this, man. That when he said it, it just set off fire in my scalp. I was like, fuck you. You are such a fucking fake charlatan that it's really sad to see that you don't support a minimum wage because you want all of your rich cronies in Silicon Valley to continue to profit off of the wage theft of all of the independent contractors that they used to run their fucking companies like Uber and shit.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like, I support the spirit of nonviolence. Meanwhile, I'm beating people up, fucking shooting people. I support the spirit of pacifism. What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean.
Government. We're shooting up everybody, but we're keeping the peace, guys.
15, then they're going to look around and be like, it's like robot burger flipper time, or it's like self-serve kiosk time, which might be okay. But I'm suggesting that if we put $1,000 a month into people's hands, then that serves as a virtual raise for every worker. It makes workers much harder to exploit. It actually rewards mothers and caregivers who right now a minimum wage would not impact. Like a freedom dividend is much, much broader and bigger, and then we can turn to a minimum wage, but the need for it goes much, much lower because I'm essentially giving everyone $1,000 a month raise, which would raise the effective minimum wage to close to $15 an hour anyway.
Get him, Jimmy.
So, okay, well, I don't agree with that because, that idea that if we raise people's wages, they'll automate them. They will automate them if they can. They're not doing that because they're nice, right? Or because they would, if they could automate their jobs right now, they would do it right now. And that the only reason
that is generally true.
Yeah,
but it is possible that if you change the economic incentives to automate something, it might become more appealing.
Right. Okay. But I like to bowl. We don't have pin setters anymore. It's not because they tried to get more money for pin setters. Okay.
It is also true too, though, Jimmy, that like if you look at like some struggling mom and pop retailer around the country, like a lot of them are paying their workers like $9-10 an hour. And then if you say, hey, it's $15, like some of them might cut back shifts or some of them might struggle. Like I've run a small private company, and a lot of these small businesses are really, really close to, like the red at any moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And something that seems like completely common sense to us, being like, hey, just pay people $15 an hour, actually would cause some of these businesses to say, you know what, I'm gonna have to cut a shift or cut a worker at the margins. So again, I just rather just give people the raise directly, and I think workers would prefer that too. If we just put $1,000 a month in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, again,
small business owner.
The UBI is
$4 million net worth.
You're correct on that, and you're incorrect on the other stuff. Businesses hire when there's a demand for their product. End of sentence. And if there's a demand for their product, they got to hire a worker. And nobody's going to go, boy, I have all these orders, but I can't pay that guy $15, so I'm not going to fill them. So that's illogical. That is a right-wing talking point. That is not how economics works.
Businesses are not flourishing at that level. If they're just living hand to mouth and they don't have the orders, and they have a hard time even paying the people they have, if you elevate those costs, it might in some situations mean they cut shifts or cut workers. I mean, that is
not economic theory. That is sound. That is right-wing talking points. But right, I have a small.
I will say 2022 Jimmy Dore needs 2019 Jimmy Dore on his show to call out the right-wing talking points when they happen.
Bro, I mean, that was so based. He literally stares him down and says him to his face, no, that's unsound economics. That's a right-wing talking point. And what I was trying to throw in there a second ago, which is the fact that Andrew Yang wants to portray himself as a small business owner. Like, oh, I know what it's like to not be able to make payroll. Like, fuck you, dude. You hired a bunch of kids that graduated from Duke and UCLA and all kinds of shit to work for you. You are a millionaire. You are not the same as a mom and pop shop. And if you were serious about those mom and pop shops, you would actually be advocating to give government benefits to them. You would be advocating for, let's bail out Main Street, let's give them government funding so that they can pay those workers $20 an hour and still get the freedom dividend. right? Because you already mentioned that that's completely divorced from your economic contribution, right? That's just something that you get for being an American. So we can do both of those things. And that was when it started to really become clear that Andrew Yang was just not a populist. He was not a progressive. He was a charlatan. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and he was just there to keep our eye off the ball of Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely, that's so true. And again, just to go back to that right-wing talking point about the minimum wage, do you guys know how much we subsidize corporations in this country? How much millions and trillions of dollars we give to the petroleum industry, for example, or how about companies like Tesla or SpaceX, Blue Origin, all these billionaire-owned companies? Do you know how much we subsidize these fucking companies? And now you're going to tell me that we couldn't make up the difference and subsidize the small businesses, the mom and pops that maybe couldn't pay their workers $15 an hour? It would be a infinitesimal fraction of the subsidies that we already give out to, you know, billionaires and to their corporations if we were to just give some of that money to the small businesses, the quote unquote mom and pops that would actually potentially struggle to pay their workers more in the event of a minimum wage hike. That's still a right-wing talking point, but still, in the event that there were any small businesses that couldn't afford that, why can't we subsidize them? We subsidize fucking oil companies. We subsidize Tesla and Elon Musk. You're telling me we can't, you know, spare a few fucking cents for the small businesses that are actually run by, you know, real hardworking Americans? What the fuck? So you can make money appear for that, but not this? Like, come on, Andrew Yang.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And Jimmy was 100% correct. That's unsound economics. That is straight up unsound economics, and it's poor framing that it's going to lead to the exploitation of the working class, which over time has been presented as something that Andrew Yang sees no real problem with. That's not a solution that he's really interested in solving. People have brought up too many like holes in his plan to be like, hey, like the other main one, we didn't even bring it up. If you want to get his $1,000, you have to give up every single other social benefit that you receive. So what if you have like fucking diabetes or something, and you need, or you know, what if you're on like dialysis or something and you need a lot of government out? Like, of course you should still get your fucking freedom dividend. Like, what kind of crazy lunatic would say you have to forfeit the money that we're giving you for dialysis, which keeps you alive? Or, you know, you can have money for fucking groceries and a gas and whatever else you need to do to live your life. Like, are you kidding me? And that was all part of his plan, the humanitarian fucking Andrew Yang. Unbelievable. But we can move on.
It's just a shame that Jimmy won't, you know, hold Nick Brana's feet to the fire in the same way. Why don't you call out his right-wing talking points? Instead, you fucking ask your audience to donate to that fucking rat. Why don't you call his right-wing talking points? Look at Nick Brana's Twitter right now. All you're going to see is right-wing talking points. Look at the People's Party Twitter. It's right-wing talking point after right-wing talking point. So again, as dope and base as that was, it does also just, you know, it sucks that he has fallen so far, because that was a real shout out, a real throwback to back when the Jimmy Dore Show was actually seriously good.
Yeah, and I also think that everybody can take one final lesson from the fact that, you know, for everybody from Cenk to Michael Brooks to Jimmy Dore to Sam Cedar, everybody was like, I think that this Yang guy is sus. I don't trust him, after they interacted with him a few times. And no matter what you feel about any of those people, right, that we've ran an ideological gamut right there. They all were like, Andrew Yang is sus. He's got weird things tethered to his UBI. He doesn't support a minimum wage, and he already backtracked on Medicare for all.